Colleges and film studios across America are reintroducing masks. Does this mean lockdowns and restrictions are back as one whistleblower claims? I hope so. They worked so well last time. Hello there, you 6.5 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe right now, particularly if you want to remain well informed about the movements and machinations of a state that wants you controlled, numb, distracted, and most importantly of all, obedient. Already across America, film studios and universities and colleges are introducing masking as a result of new coronavirus variants. But were masks effective last time? Do masks stop the spread? Am I even allowed to say that? And could lockdowns be on their way back? And if so, are these political decisions or scientific decisions? Are these decisions motivated by a requirement to control, express allegiance to a particular identity, or are they in order to protect and save human lives? We're reporting on this because a whistleblower went onto Alex Jones's show InfoWars and said that lockdown restrictions are on their way back. Have a look at the tweet. It says, breaking, Alex Jones says a TSA whistleblower has told him TSA employees were instructed on Tuesday that masks are coming back by October for travelers and full COVID restrictions, lockdowns by December due to a new dangerous variant out of Canada. Now, after last time and the efficacy of lockdowns and masking, should that be a policy? Obviously, we have to be circumspect about this information, but we've all had some pretty extraordinary experiences over the last couple of years of seeing peripheral, marginal, let's call them conspiratorial views entering into the mainstream, and many of the doubts a lot of people have proved to be valid. So perhaps we have to take this seriously. Certainly people are already masking in universities and in certain areas of professional life. So let's have a look at the mainstream media reporting on this story.
One Atlanta college is now reinstating a mask mandate.
Yeah, so this is Morris Brown College announcing this decision on its Instagram account Sunday evening. And take a look at this post. It says it's because of the reports of positive cases among students. So for the next 2 weeks, all students and employees must wear a mask unless alone in their office. There will be social distancing and no large student gatherings. Contact tracing and symptom monitoring are also in place. And they're reminding everyone to wash their hands frequently to prevent the spread of the virus.
These standard measures were regarded as sensible and necessary at the beginning of the pandemic period, but of course since then there's been a lot of speculation and indeed study into their efficacy. It's been alleged in our country, the UK, that the lockdowns were politically motivated rather than scientific. In America, it's been revealed that social distancing was arbitrary. So what is the point in these measures when they amount to little more than gestures, many people believe? Surely we have enough information now to suggest that increasing restrictions would be similarly ineffective, depending on what the desired effect is, I suppose. Of course, we could all just exchange our opinions on lockdown and COVID measures, but obviously it's favourable, preferable, necessary even, to exchange views that are based on science. So let's look at what the current thinking is on the efficacy of masks in particular. Masks made little to no difference to COVID infection or death rates, according to one of the most comprehensive meta-analyses of face coverings. The research carried out by the Cochrane Institute, the gold standard of evidence-based reviews, looked at 78 global studies involving over 1 million people. The researchers said harms caused by masks, including hampering children's schooling, were poorly measured in the studies, meaning any small benefits on infection rates may be outweighed. Professor Francois Ballou, a professor of computational biology at University College London, who was not part of the analysis, said it showed that the benefit of wearing masks is at best small. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't wear masks if they want to or if they feel comfortable doing it, but mandating those measures at an institutional level is perhaps not undergirded by science, just by a kind of set of cultural preferences almost. Let me know in the comments what you think. And what about social distancing? How effective was that? And what was the reasoning behind it? Many people are now acknowledging that the pandemic lockdown model was based on a different set of criteria, specifically an influenza crisis. That's what the modelling was based on. It wasn't an influenza crisis, it was coronavirus, and many of the measures were not effective, many of them were irrelevant. And when you start considering the impact on mental health, on economics, on other medical conditions like cancer, diabetes and heart conditions, it means that you have to bear all of this in mind, certainly before mandating lockdowns or restrictions at a national level. In December 2021, one of former President Trump's commissioners of the Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, told CBS's Face the Nation the 6-foot social social distancing rule created to slow the spread of coronavirus was arbitrary and has decreased confidence in the pandemic response. That means they just came up with a number. We all saw Mandy Cohen say that the decisions to, for example, shut down the NFL were based on a consensus achieved by chatting to peers and colleagues in various states.
When are you going to think about lightening up a mess? They're like next Monday. I'm like, okay, next Monday.
That's not the kind of scientific verification that we were told we were receiving. It's more just a bureaucratic consensus achieved between peers. What are you going to do? I'm going to do this. We're going to do that. Social distancing was similarly arbitrary. If something is not effective, what's the point in doing it? There's almost no point, except for any benefits you might imagine there are in being able to control society or control a population. Many people assume the rule traces to some old studies on the flu. What about these old studies? Yeah, they'll do. Which found droplets won't travel further than 6 feet, Gottlieb said. The 6 feet rule was probably the single costliest recommendation the CDC made, Gottlieb said, because the whole thing feels arbitrary and not science-based, which lowers public confidence. Now, I'd say public confidence is pretty low after the pandemic period, caused a lot of conflict, had a lot of detrimental secondary effects to the economy, to mental health, to addiction. The social costs were enormous. So what should we take into account before accepting further potential restrictions? Researchers say the costs of lockdown to society far outweighed the benefits and argue that they should be rejected out of hand. Lockdowns prevented just 0.2% of deaths in comparison with simply trusting people to do the right thing, a study from Johns Hopkins University suggests. That's before we include recent data that suggests that there was a 10% increase in deaths among children, adolescents, and young people from diseases of despair like addiction, because of obesity, and even because young people are taking their own lives to an unprecedented level. That means this time we have new data available when making decisions that affect the whole population. And to ignore that data would be, I would imagine, unscientific. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Scientists from Johns Hopkins University and Lund University examined almost 20,000 studies on measures taken to protect populations against COVID across the world and said their findings showed that the draconian measures had a negligible impact on COVID mortality and were a policy failure of gigantic proportions. While we can still discuss natural immunity, let's take a moment to dive into the subject before it becomes impossible to discuss it publicly. Immunity acquired from a COVID infection provides strong, lasting protection against the most severe outcomes of the illness, according to recently published information in The Lancet. Protection, experts say, that's on par with what's provided through 2 doses of an mRNA vaccine. The immunity generated from an infection was found to be at least as high, if not higher, than that provided by 2 doses of an mRNA vaccine, the authors wrote. I feel that very little that's been learned since the pandemic era suggests that we should repeat the measures that were undertaken last time. The measures themselves, whether it's masks, social distancing, or lockdowns, are all being questioned, along with many of the pharmacological interventionist methods that were also deployed. It seems that the impact of those measures are potentially worse than what they could potentially have prevented when it comes to other diseases, social conditions, and economics. And it appears that now what's required is a genuine reevaluation of what the response to any increase in coronavirus infections ought be. There's no doubt that it became heavily politicized, and wearing a mask or not wearing a mask came to be seen as a type of allegiance to a particular mindset. And I personally believe that's something we have to move beyond. We have to get to a position where we are genuinely able to look at science from across the spectrum, verify it independently, and come to conclusions based on that science. And in instances where it's been revealed that measures that were undertaken on the basis that they were scientifically verified when they in fact weren't, like lockdowns, like masks, like social distancing, like the shutting down of the entire economy, that for me is a suggestion that next time there is a pandemic, perhaps the most independent and necessary choices we could make are cynicism and skepticism, questioning authority and demanding reliable science that doesn't have in the background, in some murky room, financial imperatives. We're still questioning whether or not these pathogens came out of a laboratory or a wet market, with the former seeming more and more likely as time goes by. Until those questions are answered, I think there's a significant case for not marching back into the same mindset that we were in for the last couple of years. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments below? If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Remember, turn on the notification bell and subscribe. But more important than any of that is, if you can, please stay free.